This is Get Sellers Calling You, and I'm Beatty Carmichael. Learn more at our website at getsellerscallingyou.com.
Hi, this is Caroline Springer, and welcome to the next session of Get Sellers Calling You with Beatty Carmichael. Beatty is the CEO of Master Grabber, the creator of Agent Dominator, and one of the top marketing experts in the real estate field. Today, we're going to be continuing on our topic of the lessons we've learned about increasing our marketing results. And just a reminder for those of you that are on our live call, we do have the lines muted, but we'll open up at the end for questions and answers at the end of the call. So welcome, Beatty. I'm excited to continue on hearing about all the lessons from your years in marketing.
Well, I'm kind of excited about it too because, you know, the most amazing thing with all this is the discovery of what works and why. And because for anyone out there who's doing their own marketing, you know, why beat your head against the wall doing something that is proven to be less effective than something else? So it's just I love the topic, and I love sharing some of the discoveries. So this will be fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know you're such a stats kind of numbers guy, so I love that all of our listeners get to kind of, you know, reap those benefits of all the tests you run, the split A/B, all these different kinds of tests.
I know what's going on with most of the listeners out there, because most realtors are high D and or high I, which is just the opposite of details focused. And so they're going, oh no, I don't want all the details. Just, you know, sort of like it's like saying, you know, I don't want to give birth to a baby. Just give me the baby, you know. So, but sometimes if you're doing your own marketing, or if you have someone on your team that you've hired out to do marketing, it's important that they really understand this. So sometimes it takes a detail person to keep things going right.
Yes, yeah, and they can just reap the benefits of all of your work, all of the things you've learned. You can just boil it down and give it to them, and, you know, quick and easy bullet points. Well, I don't know if you wanted to do a quick just refresher of where we started, and then we can kind of continue down the line and just see where we end up.
Sure, I think that's a great thing. So we've just gotten started in the series, and if my memory serves me correct, on the last call, we were really just kind of giving an overview of the whole idea of testing and using split test, which is where you test the very same marketing piece with only one change. And you put it out there simultaneously to your market, and then see which piece pulls the most results, because whichever piece pulls the most, then at that point you know that that one change that you did makes a difference. Okay, so that's the only way you can really figure out what's working in marketing. So we talked about that, kind of the direction this was going, and I think if I recall, we talked about the type of font print that we use, what's called regular or normal, or regular or reverse. Okay, regular font is when you have like a dark font on a light colored background. And reverse font is where you have a light-colored font, let's say white, on a dark background, let's say a black background. And just the amazing discovery that we came in when we did that and found that the normal font, the regular font style, increased results 850% over the reverse font. And so what this means is when you're out there and you're doing your, you know, you're putting together your Facebook ads, or you're doing your online, sorry about that, just knocked my headset off. Your online ads or postcard or print media or anything like that, the tendency is we want to make it look really pretty, which means we use darker backgrounds and put print on top of it. And now it kind of looks pretty, but the reality is when you do that, you're reducing your results. So it's just some cool stuff. So that's, I think, kind of where we talked about last time, and then we'll pick up from there.
Yes, that serves my memory correctly as well. And I believe we were just going to get started, and this is something that I know I've heard a lot of realtors talk about before, and just maybe, you know, what's your experience is, kind of the difference between a jumbo versus a regular postcard. Does it really matter? You know, have we seen a significant difference, you know, or have you seen in what you've studied over the years in marketing, I think that would be a really good place to start, because I know a lot of people have asked that.
Yes. Well, that's a great place to start, because I remember, so in the early stages, we were doing postcard farming, geographic farming for clients, and we were using regular postcards, regular size postcards, or what I call ugly cards, okay? And I kept hearing from some of our clients, well, you need to use jumbo, you need to use jumbo. And I go, why? And because everyone says jumbo works best. They say, I've done research, and even the post office says that the larger the postcard, the better the results and all that. So I'm one of these guys that I say, I don't think it'll make that big of a difference, but let's test it because of what we were doing. Now, to set the stage, okay, at that time, we were doing what's called direct response cards, meaning the postcards were going out into a geographic farm. They were offering some information for someone to respond to, and then the prospect would go to a website and check out what the free report or whatever it was that we were offering. So what we were attempting to do is get the person to actually click on to the link that we had on the postcard, okay? And with that, we tested jumbo versus regular. And we did this test 4 different times in all over the country, a large split A-B test. It's probably one of the larger of the split A-B tests that we've done. And the results were really interesting. Would you like to guess what the results might have been? Which one outperformed the other?
Well, I would assume that the regular did not outperform.
That's correct, and neither did the jumbo. And this,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a dead even, okay, with one exception. In Florida, jumbo outperformed regular size postcards by like maybe 20%. I mean, that was it. I mean, it was very insignificant. I mean, 20% significant, but in the big scheme of the other things we tested, it was very insignificant. However, everywhere else that we tested, there was absolutely no discernible difference. And wow. So here's the conclusion. Now, by the way, I prefaced it that we're doing direct response marketing for a reason. And this gets back into when you're doing these type of marketings, you got to understand what's the purpose of what you're doing so that you can determine if the test that you're doing is a valid test. Okay? So what we were doing, and it's very important, is when we're doing the direct response stuff, we have a really good headline that grabs the attention already of someone who's thinking about selling. So our postcards are designed to identify sellers before they come on the market. And so we tested a lot of different headlines and had narrowed down to those headlines that consistently produce. And the headline in general would say something like this: if you're thinking about selling your home, and then it would have something else, like, if you're thinking about selling your home, read this postcard, read this headline, here's how to get more money, here's how to find out what your home is worth, anything like that. But in marketing, there's this thing called a reticular activator, and it's sort of like a radar. If you think about when you get your, in fact, let me just say, have you guys ever bought a new or a new used car before?
We've never bought a new car, but we have bought a used car. Is that
okay? When you bought the used car, before you bought it, did you recall seeing lots of those cars around, or just every now and then? I mean, was it something that really stood out all the time for you?
Oh, I definitely know what you're talking about. Yes, we did not see them very often, and then as soon as we started talking about buying them, it was everywhere. We saw them all the time.
There you go.
Laughing about that.
Yeah, so that is what's called the reticular activator. And what the reticular activator does, and this is really important in this type of marketing that we're doing to identify sellers, what the reticular activator does is when you have your mind on something, then it looks for everything out there that might apply to what you have your mind on, okay? So when you have your mind on a particular car, then now everywhere you look, every time you see one of those cars, your mind immediately recognizes it. But if you're not looking for that car because you're not in the market for it, then your mind just totally ignores it. So that's the reticular activator. So when you have someone thinking about selling, and you have a headline that is focused on what they're looking for, selling their home, then what these tests showed is it doesn't matter the size of the postcard, the results will always be the same because the reticular activator overcomes any sizing issue on the postcard. So then that begs the question, if everyone says jumbo postcards work better than regular postcard, then what are they talking about? And I've got an idea. Would you like to venture a guess on why, when people say jumbos work better than regular, why they're saying that?
Just a first guess is, since you were talking about the people that notice it are the people that are already thinking about selling, it's just that's going to jump out even more at them. That's something that they're, not going to easily lose. You're not going to lose your information. And so it just seems like it would be a better idea if they're already looking for it. It's going to really catch their eye. But that's just my first guess.
Okay, so then why, if you take that out of the equation, then why do people say that jumbo is more effective than regular? Because that's the argument for why regular will work as well as jumbo. But in what cases will jumbo work better than regular? That's probably the better question to ask.
I'm trying to think about what cases.
All right, can I offer a suggestion?
Yes, I always like it when you offer me the suggestion.
It's just the opposite of the case where it doesn't work work any better. In other words, if regular works just as well as jumbo when you're looking for something, then in those cases that you're not looking for something, jumbo is going to work better than regular because it gives you more real estate space, so to speak, to get in front of their face. Okay?
Right. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
And I don't want to narrow this conversation to just postcards. We tested in postcards. We use postcards because it's a very specific target marketing to a very specific list consistently. And in the real estate world, you still can't beat it, okay? And there's a lot of studies and statistics around that. But this concept I'm talking about, regular versus jumbo, is the same concept as a small ad versus a big ad on any sort of print medium, or a small ad versus a big ad on an advertising website, or anything like that. The concept is the same, and here's the concept. When you are trying to push your message in front of someone who is not necessarily interested in that message right now, the larger the space you have to push it, the higher the response rate. So, for example, Bed Bath & Beyond, 20% off. That comes on a jumbo postcard because I'm not thinking, I'm really thinking about I need to go to Bed Bath & Beyond today and buy something. So when I get the postcard, it prompts me, maybe some of these things we're looking at buying, maybe we need to go to Bed Bath & Beyond first because I got a discount. In other words, they're pushing their offer to me when it's not something I'm normally thinking about. And so the way that we use that with our clients and what we find works best is if I have something I want to push to them, not offer them. I want to push information out to them so that I can touch everyone on my list and influence them all. Okay? So for example, if I'm sending out a just sold postcard, I want everyone to take notice of that. So it's going to be more effective on a jumbo postcard than a regular size postcard because it's going to be more in your face. And by getting it more in your face, I'm going to influence everyone on my list. So the difference is if I'm going to use a direct response card, I can go with a smaller card and be just as good as long as I got a good headline. But if it's not a direct response card and it's more of what I call a branding card or what we call personally an inside reality card where we're trying to educate that homeowner and move that needle in their brain to favor one client over another, then that's where the jumbo is more effective. Is that making sense?
Oh, yes, it absolutely does. I think, a lot of that, too, just really breaks down the explanation, too, between, I think everybody really does think, the jumbo makes sense. The jumbo would, bring in more people. And so I think that was a really thorough explanation to show, here's why that probably still is the best choice, even though that first result showed us, that maybe there wasn't a difference. There really is at the bottom line.
Right. So it goes back to it's all a matter of what is it that you're trying to get them to do, or what is it you're trying to get your postcard to do, or your advertisement if it's not a postcard. And based on that, jumbo or regular will have an impact or not.
Well, good. I'm glad we kind of ventured into that and kind of, helped settle that. I know that's been something that I've heard a lot of people ask about. And, I think that's a really great, kind of explanation to, I guess, solve the mystery of why, which one's better. I know something that we've spoken about before is just the difference between like a pretty, or even you even spoke about this early on this call, like a pretty versus ugly cards. Do you want to kind of...
You're listening to the Get Sellers Calling You podcast. To increase sales from past clients and sphere of influence or from a geographic farm, learn about Agent Dominator. We guarantee your sales in writing or give your money back. To learn more, visit our website at getsellerscallingyou.com and select Agent Dominator from the menu. And now, back to the podcast.
I don't know, expand on that. I thought that could be another good topic for us to kind of go over.
Sure. So let me preface this with, especially for those agents who have been around long enough to have heard of a guy named Craig Proctor. Okay, so Craig Proctor, if you don't know him, big top producer up in Canada. He's the one that started to pioneer primarily the idea of if I don't sell your house, I'll buy it. Okay, and all these what I'll call amazing, unique selling propositions, these guarantees, these things that will cause someone to respond. And so they're all, in sense, sort of a direct response type of thing. This is also back during, before, pre-internet. And so a lot of newspaper ads and did a lot of things with postcard mailing when postcard was probably one of the dominant ways that most agents started to market themselves. So he started to do things, and most agents, the reason I go through that is most agents will recognize this as something that maybe Craig Proctor did. It's not unique to him. This is actually something that a lot of direct marketers did in various venues, and that is to, on a postcard, to send an ugly postcard, okay? An ugly postcard meaning it's just like stark yellow with bold black print. Okay. In other words, when you get it in the in the mail, it really stands out, and that's why they would do it. And we've done that in the past with other clients in other industries using these really kind of ugly type of cards. They're ugly in terms of they don't look all that pretty, but they get tremendous results because of they just stand out. So when we started with geographic farming, we started to use, because we're in direct response, going to consumers, in the mailbox, needing to compete, we used ugly postcards. Okay, they were bright yellow, they had bold print, they were very plain, and they made the offer. And they worked really, really well. But then we started to test, what if we made them prettier? Because our clients kept saying, well, we want something pretty. I want something that that makes me feel good as a realtor because I'm selling these expensive homes, and I've got other realtors that have all these beautiful photographs on their stuff, and so I want mine to look pretty as well because it makes me look more professional. That was the idea. So we went out there and we started to test ugly versus pretty. And the way that you do it, again, back with the way you do a split A/B test, is you change only one thing. So we would go out in the mail using our direct response offers, which we could track really easily, which is responding better. And the only thing we changed is the postcard design. So it'd be the identical headline, identical copy, and we would test the ugly postcard versus a pretty postcard. And the pretty postcard, we had a graphic designer work on it. It had some pretty images on it. It had it had sort of a image-based background and heading, and you just look at it and it just looks more professionally done. So we did our split A/B test, a fairly decent-sized testing on that. And would you like to guess which card won?
Well, I want to say that the ugly card one, just because that would be more interesting. That would be a more interesting result. So that's going to be my guess. Although I would be surprised still, even though that's my guess.
Yeah, I know what's going on this call, because every time I ask you, you always pick the wrong thing because you pick the thing that you think is logical. So now, I got to tell you a funny story. As we're talking about, I think you're picking the thing that's opposite of what you really believe, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let me back up and tell you a humorous story, because it's just funny. It has no marketing value. Well, it has some marketing value if you want to dig into it. But my son, my middle son, Beatty Jr., is a minimalist. I mean, he wears the same clothes for, week over week. And I mean, he's an adult, okay, a young adult, and I'm not trying to speak poorly of him, and I'm not, but he's just very minimalist. He's an outdoors person. He loves just to stay outdoors for a week or two at a time. The only things, he doesn't like many gifts. He doesn't like much. All of his clothes are very drab color. So you kind of get this idea, just this guy that's just out in nature. My daughter, on the other hand, teenage daughter, she's definitely a girly girl to a degree. She loves all the pretty things. She's all social. She loves the jewelry. And so it was her birthday. I think it was her 16th birthday. And my son bought her a necklace. And she opened it up, and it was really a beautiful necklace. I mean, my daughter loved it. My wife loved it. I looked over at my son and said, "Who helped you pick it out? Because I know you could never have picked that one out." And he said, "No, I picked it out myself." I said, "No way." He said, "Yeah." I said, "How did you do it?" He said, "I went to the store, and I picked out everything I liked the best, and I pulled them off the rack, and then I looked at everything remaining, and the one I liked the least is the one I picked."
Oh my gosh, that is too funny.
and so what's happening is you pick just the opposite of what you think is the right answer, and it turns out to be the right answer. Except in this case, you're actually wrong on that one. The pretty card,
no.
Yeah, the pretty card outperformed the ugly card by 250%. Okay.
Oh wow. Well, good.
So that's 2.5 times. What does that mean? What it means is, now keep in mind the market that we're going after. We're going after the more sophisticated homeowner market, meaning, these are average sales price, $250, $300, basically right there at the average sales price in America. So these are average Americans in the average world of what they do, and we're going after them with a professional agent. However, if we were to do this test in the other side of things, have you ever seen those signs or the advertisements like "We buy ugly houses"? You see those all over, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All over on the side, like the yard posts and stuff on the side.
Yeah, exactly. And here's what they found. Because of the market that they're going after, they find that ugly works better than professional. The market that we're going after, professional, work better than ugly. So just keep that in mind, okay? As you're going after the market, then you apply whatever that market is most interested in. But it increased our results 250%. So we very quickly revamped all of our marketing pieces for our clients into the pretty cards. And that was one of the tests that we did. It was just a real interesting test.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you shared, because maybe one of our realtors might have been thinking the way I was. So we got that corrected, that what you would think, for this type of market, like you were saying, they would prefer the pretty card.
Yes.
I don't know. Do you feel like we have time to venture into
Let's do one
another
more.
lesson?
Let's
Okay.
do one more. I think we got time.
Okay, perfect. Well, what did you have next on your list as an idea to share?
I've got something that no one would ever have thought about testing.
Okay.
No one would. They would just do it without even thinking that what they're doing might be hurting their results. Even more so than our first call talking about regular print versus reverse print, okay? And it's the actual type of font that you use. Now, the font is what the actual letters look like. And in fonts, you have basically two categories. You have serif and sans serif, okay? Serif are the ones that have what I'll call the little curly cues at the end. Sans serif, sans means without, so sans serif means without serif or without curly cues. An easy way, most people will recognize it as you have like Times Roman, okay, and you have Calibri or Arial or whatever the Mac version is of those same that are just very straight up and down type of letters. Do you understand what I'm talking about when I talk about the fonts now?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I was trying to think of what another word would be for those little things on the edge, but I guess curly cues is
curly cues, little flags. It's just a little bit of fanciness on the
right.
on the letters. So here's what's interesting. Now, we did not do this test because we don't have the depth of ability to do this one. But I was reading from a huge marketer. His name is Joe Sugarman, and he's done tons and tons and tons of marketing for his business and other business products, hundreds of millions of dollars in sales, and just very wealthy from it. And he was talking about what they did in some of their testing, and it makes sense because, sometimes I'll recognize it, and then I go apply it myself, and I go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And here's what's real interesting. That so in this test that was done back in the 80s and maybe 90s, they were testing serif versus sans serif, okay? The curly Q versus the non-curly Q. And what they found is the serif font, the one with the curly Q, created 500% increased retention of the information that the person read over the sans serif. Okay, so here's the impact. If I want to, now there's some elements here that I think needs to be addressed briefly. So if you think back in the 1980s and 1990s, the people that were reading advertisements during that time frame, how old do you think they would be now in the early 2000s? Or 2018, 2019, 2017, and that. What age group do you think those people are now?
Wait, the ones that were reading it back in which?
In the 80s and 90s. In the 80s and 90s. How old are they going to be now?
Oh, I mean 60s maybe.
Okay, I'd say late 40s to into the 60s and 70s, right? In other words, they're not millennials.
Right.
Okay. But they're the age groups above millennials. And so what this means is, at the very least, if your target is going to be the Gen Xers, I think that's what you call it, they're going to be late 40s into their 50s, and then you got baby boomers that are into their late 50s and 60s. If that's your target market and you want them to be able to easily read your material, you need to use a serif font, one with those little curly cues, because that's what they grew up with. All the newspapers, all of the magazines, everything was printed with serif font. So for them, it's just a very comfortable read. And even right now, I'm reading a book that's written more by millennial, and it's all in a sans serif font. It is the hardest thing for me to read. I am struggling every single page because I'm not accustomed to it. It's difficult to read. If it were done in sans serif, I could just read it with ease. And so what's happening is I'm having to work harder to understand what it's saying, because even though the words are the same, the way that they're displayed is different, and it's just uncomfortable. So if you're targeting that older market, then use the font that they're accustomed to, and you'll increase their retention of what it is that you're communicating with them on. Now, my estimation on this is if you're dealing with a younger market, your age, 20s, okay, the millennials, you guys have grown up on your electronic devices. And almost all text on electronic devices is sans serif. I don't know if you noticed that. And so your age group is probably more likely to more quickly read and retain information from a sans serif font than you are a serif font, simply because it's what you're more familiar with. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's also to me, it's a bit surprising that, a 500% comprehension rate, you would think that that the font would just affect, maybe someone's preference, but even just their comprehension of what they're reading can be affected so much by just a simple font. That's surprising to me.
It's these little things that make the big difference. Do you remember the story, for want of a nail, the battle was lost? Do you know what that story is, or shall I share it?
I don't remember that story. I'm sorry.
No problem. So this goes back, and I think this is a true story. It goes back probably to the Civil War, sometime when they had cavalry on horses. Okay, and it says, for the want of a nail, the horseshoe came off. For want of the horseshoe coming off, the horse stumbled and fell. And for the horse stumbling and fell, the rider, the general of the army, fell and was out of the battle. And because he's out of the battle, they lost that battle. And because that battle was lost, the war was lost. So for want of a nail, the war, all the repercussions of that downstream, they ended up losing the entire war. And so we can look at this as in terms of marketing. People say, well, why are you so fascinated with all these little things? What's the big deal? The big deal is we're in a battle. The battle is to win that consumer's mind. And if you forget some of these little things and you don't put them in place, you never really understand the long-term implication. But if you put all these little things in place, then you got the nails hammered in solidly on every horseshoe so that the horseshoe can't fail. And that's the rudimentary basic of making sure that your riders get into battle and do their best. Once you start having failure points in the little things, then the big things start falling apart as well. So that's what's so cool with all of this.
Well, that makes sense, and that's a good picture to draw for everybody. Well, I think we are just about out of time and need to wrap up the call. Beatty, thank you so much for your time and just sharing your expertise. I think this was really fun to learn and hear, just all of the experiences you've learned through all of your years in marketing. Was there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'd love to. As always, we provide a service that funds all that we do, so we can do these free podcasts and give away great information. But the most important thing is, I remember, I think I may have shared this one time, but I was at a conference with a client friend of mine. He was teaching at this conference, and one of the slides he put up, and this was in the context of getting a listing, especially from, especially when you're in competition with other agents. And the slide that he put up that he would share with his listing prospects is, if you think hiring a professional is expensive, try hiring an amateur. Okay, and I think the same rule kind of applies here. If you think hiring a service to do your marketing for you is expensive, try doing it yourself as an amateur. And so if you like to hire a professional, we're going to be more expensive than you can do it on your own in dollars per item. But we're going to be less expensive in terms of the overall results because we're going to blow your results out of the water. But it's called Agent Dominator. You can learn more at agentdominator.net. And what's really cool about it, Caroline, is because of all these things we've done, because of all the testing and our in-depth knowledge of what's going on, and a long history, we actually guarantee the results. We guarantee the sales that our clients get at a very minimal level, the minimum number of sales that they'll get, or we'll refund their money. So it's a great way to move into an area of marketing, be able to outsource it to someone, and know that they'll stand behind it, or it's so your risk is minimal to non-existent. So agentdominator.net is how you can check that out.
Well, great. Thank you, Beatty. And I think what we're going to do is wrap up the call. And then for those of you that are on with us live, if you have questions that you'd like to ask Beatty, just hold on. And as soon as we wrap everything up, we'll go into a short questions and answer time. And that's all we have for today. Thanks for joining in.
Well, thank you.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe to it so you never miss another episode, and please like our Get Sellers Calling You Facebook page. Also, if you want to increase sales from past clients and sphere of influence, dominate a geographic farm, or convert home valuation leads, check out our Agent Dominator program. We create custom content that differentiates you from other realtors, then use it to keep you top of mind with your prospects with postcards, targeted Facebook ads, email campaigns, video interviews, and more. And the best part is we guarantee your sales or give all your money back. Learn more at GetSellersCallingYou.com and select Agent Dominator in the menu. Thanks for listening to the Get Sellers Calling You podcast. Have a great day.